Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to let everybody pop in. Hello, Susanna, and I'm going to go grab a water. How is everybody today? Hopefully you've had a good week. I feel like the week has gone by ridiculously fast. Hello, Kelly. Hey, Coralie. Hello, Cynthia. Hello, Debbie. How are you guys? Hello, Julie. I've had so much fun playing with these watercolor pencils. Just move my mat over a little bit. Get it centered. Hello to Mara. I started playing with them, well, I've been playing with them all week, but yesterday I kind of pulled out things that I wanted to show today, and it's kind of a rabbit hole. Like I think it's fun to just get them out, and if you have an idea like, oh, I wonder if this will work, try everything that you want to try without specifically making something. Pencils are on your wish list. Nice. Yes, I waited for a little while to get them, and they were out of stock for a while, so I just kind of hung back, and I am glad that I was kind of able to wait till I could see other people using them and how they're using them, because that's always fun. But they're back in stock now, and they are really fun. I love all the different ways that you can play with them. I think that's a really good sign of, a great art supply is if you can do lots of different techniques. The daisies, I know, those are my favorite. You're hanging in, Debbie. That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's just so many. I started watching some YouTube videos, and when I got an idea like, oh, I have to try that, I stopped and I tried something, and there really wasn't anything that I didn't like. And there's so many more ideas. So we'll go through a few things today. And if you guys have any ideas too about things that you want to try, then we can try them, or have a different technique day as well. But I think trying stuff is the best way to find out if you're going to use it or make sure you're going to use it. So I will kind of show you what I have here. I grabbed a few other things as well. So of course we have the pencils. These are set 1, 2, and 3, and right off the bat, not sure, so I have to look at the back. This one is set 3, and then it tells you on the back exactly which colors, as well as the colors are written on the paper here on the pencil. And this one here is set 2. The Distress watercolor crayons. Well, we'll kind of go through what they do. And these are the set 1. So they're not waxy like crayons. They're not permanent at the end. I feel like the watercolor capabilities are definitely better. Like these are a watercolor pencil rather than the crayon it can be combined with water to create a medium, but this would be more of a fluid watercolor, there's still lots of fun things that you can do with the crayons. But I feel like these have even more, a larger range of capabilities. You can certainly use them with the crayons. They are going to react a little bit differently. I think Tim Holtz too, he has really great videos when he first brings stuff out that he kind of shows exactly what the items do. And sometimes I find, like, if it's been a while that I haven't used, since I've used the crayons, then I'll go back and watch his video just to kind of see what he, things that he may have done with them that I forget. You can rub the crayons over metal, and kind of have that effect. And yeah, lots of different things. Hello, Rebecca. You can definitely sharpen them, Cynthia, and I am going to show you that. I actually have this Prismacolor sharpener here, and this is one that Sandy has in the Scrap Shot store, and it has two openings, so both the same size pencil, but this one would make a longer, shorter, fatter tip, and this would make a longer, thinner pointed tip. And I will kind of give you an idea what we're going to do with the sharpenings. They're really fun too. I actually created this whole background with just a sharpening. So we're going to do that because I think, like, these crayon, I keep calling them crayons, but they're pencils. These pencils are completely pigment. So other than this little wrapper on the edge, the whole thing is pigment, and you're going to see how far it goes. I think these are going to last you a long, long time. This here, we're going to do some, like a collage type medium over the top to give us a bit of a resist so that the watercolor stays on the top. For some of these other papers, we're going to use the Vicki Boutin Foundations paper because that's a really great heavy duty, great for watercolor. You could use watercolor paper as well. I wanted something that's smooth, and the Vicki Boutin paper has almost like a gessoed coating on the top. But if you only have regular cardstock, I'm going to show you how you can just use, like, this is called Cola Vela, and Sandy said she's going to get some in the store. It's called rice paper glue, but it works great as a decoupage glue or a medium that you can use to cover your project, almost like a gesso, but it's clear and very thin. And then you have this surface that you can really move things around on. Hello, Glenda. We're going to look at some embossing folders, how you can decorate those, do some watercoloring. This was simply made with some sharpenings last week when we did the live, and there was a couple other, let me just grab last week's. So this was an image colored in with the watercolor pencils. And that's in the video section if you want to go back and watch that or you missed it. And we colored a background and added some stenciling with the pencils and die cut that out. So that's another way to use it. And splatters is really fun. I love being able to use the splatters. So this was playing around on black cardstock. And you can see how much those colors really pop. That was just coloring a stamp. And again, with that one, I think you could get a really cool chalkboard type finish. This is stamping with them and doing the outline stamp. So we'll look at that. So let's move this out of the way. And here's stenciling. So going right through stencil, this literally looks like a watercolor painting, and all we did was use a stencil. So that's really fun. Okay, just going to move a couple things out, and then we will go kind of piece by piece, and you'll get an idea of how these things work. And if we think of something else in the meantime, then we'll pull it out. Do you have the pencils, Glenda? Or are you thinking of getting them? So I used colors from all of the different sets. This here is the Vibrant Florals, and it's a 3-piece stencil from Altenew. Altenew has great layered stencils. There's lots in the shop too if you're looking for some. So this one here, let's just get them organized. There's a number on the top, but you definitely don't have to go specifically by the number. But we'll grab the number 1, and this is the one that we used for this one. And I will give you an idea of how that's going to work. So this is a piece of the Vicki Boutin paper. Now when I do cut the foundations paper, I do pay attention to which side is the top, because it is a nice sturdy paper. You can use both sides, but if you'll notice, like you can see this little dotted line. And just one sec here. I see that I think Irene was messaging me and she can't find the live. So let me just tag her. Let's see. I know she was having some problems finding it. So you guys just give me 1 second if it lets me tag her. Of course, it's not like there's a bazillion Irenes coming up. Oh, I think this is her. Let's see if that worked. Hello, Susan. And we'll just tell her to go to the main Scrap Shotz page. That's probably the easiest if anybody ever can't find it. All right, let's try that. Okay, so back to our paper. This is the Vicki Boutin Foundations paper. Oh, good, you're on. Awesome. And so this would be the front. There was no link. That's so weird. And then this is the back. It looks like a backside. So on the front, there is actually a gessoed coating, and everything that you put on this is going to move around better if you use the front. So usually I try to leave this strip on if I'm using it, just so I remember what's the front. But if I do cut it up, I just try to put like a little pencil B on the back, and then I'll remember. It's not a huge deal. It's still a really nice paper, and things are going to move around. They just move around a little bit nicer if you have it on the front. Wasn't under the Facebook group. Usually if you, not the group specifically, Irene, but if you go to the Scrap Shotz Facebook page, like the main page, that's where it will for sure be live every time. Yeah, you've got a notification. I know, like Facebook is so funny because sometimes people get it and sometimes they don't. I have not been able to figure it out. So we will start with the first layer of this Altenew stencil. So this one was the Vibrant Florals, and you didn't miss anything, Irene. We just started. This is our first project. So I'm going to grab this. We'll just put it on our little stencil mat because sometimes that just keeps it a little bit grippy. And then we can decide what color. So I just use various blues for this. I'm just going to move my trimmer. And hi, Jenny. If I didn't say hi to you, I saw you pop in. Let's see. We could stick with the blues, or we could do something a little bit different. We could do maybe like we could do yellows. How about that? We'll do yellow. So I'm just taking the watercolor pencil and it's dry. And all I'm going to do, and we'll just do the larger flower right now, but you'll get an idea of how it all came together. And I just trace right around the edge. Now, after you're done, you'll probably, I didn't rinse this off, and so we may end up getting a little bit of the blue transferring, and that will give us green, but that's okay. So afterwards, you could just rinse it off in some water or give it a wipe. So for the other one, I just traced all the spaces, and then I went back and just gave it a little bit of shading. This is like just super quick and easy. I also think for the crayons, you know how they have a little bit of time to move, but if you don't kind of get to them right away, they are a little bit trickier to move. Whereas this, you could walk away and leave this till 10 days later and then come back and you're still going to be able to wet it. So that's going to be that first layer. And what I will do is just give this a little wipe so I don't forget. And you can see even just with that little bit of color that was around the edges, you get more color showing up. So then I would just set this aside to dry. And then I'm going to go in, move this down a little bit. So Irene, do you have the pencils? I can't remember if you said you did or you were kind of hanging off. Look how beautiful that is. I'm gonna, hello Patty. There, zoom in a little bit. So I'm going over the darker part just to get my pigment moving. And then usually what I try to do is have just a tissue or paper towel on the side. I could definitely fill this completely in right now and it would be more kind of one color. So I know if I go on the darker part and dab the color off a little bit, then I can go in and bring that color over and it's almost a little bit lighter on that side if you just want to add a little bit of variation. And you can go over those edges that you traced and it really almost, like any of the lines just disappear. So these ones, I'm not worried too much about a lighter or darker. I can definitely go back in and add some shading and I'll show you how to do that in the center. But there's lots that you can do. You can also just outline it and then pull the color in and then you're going to get a little bit of a lighter color. Like if I just pulled that color in and filled the inside in, then it's going to be a little bit less pigment, but it's beautiful. It's so lovely and vibrant. So that's one layer of, and this was the mustard seed. You have sets 2 and 3. Nice. And you love the Tim Holtz pencils, Sarah? That's great. Yeah, I'm very impressed. And I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because I think, most things that, well, everything that Tim Holtz comes out with, he's put a lot of thought and make sure that it is a professional product. So I'm just going to give this a quick dry. It really dries pretty quickly, but I'm going to lay the next stencil on, so I just don't want there to be a whole lot of water. So now we're on to stencil number 2, and we're just lining it up. So this stencil, it has the 3 flowers that then kind of sit opposite to what you would have just stenciled, and this is a center for one of the flowers. So you're not going to worry about this if you're doing the stencil. You're just going to do the petals, and then you come back in to do the centers. So I like that they've kind of created this to make the best use of the stencils. So let's come in with a little bit darker yellow now. So we can go with we'll go with the fossilized amber. You bought a bunch of Spellbinder stuff in the store, 30% off all of them. That is a good deal. Spellbinders has just beautiful things, hey? I like to that you can stamp with these, and you can make backgrounds and then die cut those backgrounds out. So you might be able to do some fun die cutting with your Spellbinders products. This has a really skinny little piece in here, and I'm just going very carefully around it because it's not really attached to anything. And then again, I'm just going to scribble a little bit in. All right. And I'm not filling in quite as much. This one I think is a little bit darker. And I will clean that after. I will try to remember to clean that after. Okay, again, this is just like those paint by number. I love it. So you're sitting down and just, I find this is just the relaxing part. You're just filling it in. And then I'll show you how to add a little bit of detail. And the more you go over those edges, the more they're going to blend in, or you can leave them a little bit darker, and then it's going to look like a little bit of a border. I like this flower too because you can make it into so many different florals. Of course, I'm not really a plant person, so to me, if it's like pink, then it looks different than if it was blue, or if it's yellow, then I'm gonna call it a daisy. And all right, if we felt like we wanted to get a little bit more color on certain areas, I can come back this fossilized amber, and I do have just a container of water. I feel like if you want to use these wet, you can just dip it in. They've got so much pigment, and then I'm just picking up the color, which I think is a really great way again of using this, and adding it on. So this could be a shadow. You can also blend it out if you felt like you wanted more or less of that shadow. Then I'm just squeezing the water brush, or dip it into your water if you have a paintbrush, and I'm just getting that a little more wet, and that just allows me to move it around. So really you can come back to this play with this as much as you want. So that was with that color, and then the mustard seed, we could do the same thing, just add a little bit different variation. Or if you just had one set of the colors, and you could totally stencil both with doing the same technique with one color, and then just come back in with that same color and add in some shading. Or you could come back in with like a brown and add some shading. So you don't have to necessarily use two different colors, but you can see how that really gives you that variation just by coming back. Glenda has been enabled and may do some shopping now. Then for the center, let's just again give this a little bit. I haven't even looked in the shop to see what's on sale, so and definitely look under that sale section. There's probably some goodies in there. I know we've just got some Ulta new stuff. I had showed some new stuff last week. The January kits are in the shop, and that's going to be the last specifically new kit of the month. But Sandy is still going to have kits. They're just going to show up in the shop. So when she has a kit, you'll see it in the shop, and just not do the stamp of the month specifically. So this is the third layer, and then if you laid this on, the centers go in the middles, and then you've got the leaves on the outside. You can just stick those on there. So the center, we could do like a brown color. So maybe vintage photo. It's kind of my go-to brown. And I'm just doing the same thing. It's not going to go in. I mean, it depends on how sharp that you have it. If you want it sharper, then you just put it in here. Maybe we'll do this here, and then I'll show you how you can use the sharpenings. So if you weren't worried about keeping this sharpening, then you wouldn't worry about taking this off. But if you wanted to keep this and use this for a background, then you could use the sharpener. So I'm going to use the shorter, fatter sharpener end. And when we sharpen it, I'm like barely pressing it, and then I'm getting all this sharpenings out. And that just gives us a little bit sharper tip. You're really not losing that much. Plus, I'll show you how you can use the rest of that. So if we're back to our, then that's just going to allow you to trace those areas out better. Or if you're coloring with them, you might want a little bit of a sharper point, and you could definitely sharpen it even more than that, right? Now I'm not pressing super hard because I don't want, this is a larger area and I want everything to kind of blend out. I don't want lines, although it does blend out pretty easily. So I'll leave it as that. And then my leaves, let's see, got a little bit of, now if you do get a little bit of color, I think I dripped a little bit of color, you can easily wipe that off. So I got some on there, and I can just take this and wipe it off, or let's grab a little wipe. That's just going to remove that color that I dripped on there, and really it's gone. So you could be a little more careful. I think I just um, was not being very careful when I put it in. It does clean up very easily, so that's good. And it's going to wipe off of your stencils really easily as well. So we've got the peeled paint. Hello, Betty. No worries. Hello, Melanie. Thanks, Irene. Okay, so let's just trace. We are just tracing stencils, Betty and Melanie, with these Tim Holtz Distress pencils. And I'm going to draw that piece in just because I'm only doing one flower. I think that should be good. I could go back and I could add in those other stencils again if I wanted. So I removed the stencil and I'm coloring in the areas. You could leave the stencil on there if you felt like you wanted to make sure you didn't get any of the wrong areas colored, but I think I'm okay here. And I'm really just being very messy and not worrying about it too much. So the center, okay, I have a little bit of yellow on my brush still, which is fine because that's the center. And I want it to look like a watercolor, so I'm really not being too careful that everything is, exactly outlined. I'm going to let that dry for a minute. And then we'll do our leaves the same way. You're just going around the leaves. It's actually pretty quick. I'm filling them in, but you know that as soon as you are done this, you definitely could go back with either the same color or a different color and add some more details. And you can see, like, even in those larger areas where I scribbled on, the lines come out very nicely. So I think I would probably, this is the same color. Let's see, let's just pick up a little bit of color. I would probably come back in and like add a little bit of shading. You could go in with a darker color or stick with that lighter color. But I love how this looks like you have literally, well, you have watercolored it, right? And you don't even have to worry if you kind of go out of the lines. And then you just add your sentiment. You could make one of these panels and you could frame it with like a little dollar store frame. I think it would look adorable. So the other thing that I did with this was add some splatters. So I'm going to show you some things that we can do with these shavings. So I've just got, we sharpened that brown pencil, the vintage photo. I'm going to add some water, and I have seen what some people have been doing is, let me grab a pencil, is getting the little half pans of water. Sorry, not water. The half pans that are empty for watercolor paints. And then they've been filling the individual things when they sharpen their pencil. They'll add it into this little half pan. It's like a little cube, plastic cube, and add water. And then they have this little watercolor paint palette. So you can see how lovely that is. But even if you didn't want to do that and you just kind of wanted to work with your shavings, you've got this really great watercolor paint now that you can then, do whatever you want with. So we'll add a few little splatters. I think splatters are amazing. Add that on. Then you could take some coordinating, like maybe, you could take some coordinating vintage photo ink and stamp a little sentiment on there and have this lovely little masterpiece. Yes, very cool. And then if you feel like, oh, I maybe put those lines on and I don't like them, then you could come back in and just, it's very forgiving. Or, if you painted outside a line, and you wanted to remove it, so I don't want to put anything on here right now, but I'll show you after when we're painting an image. Anyway, that's just kind of a really cute thing. I just put this on a cardstock on a blue panel and added it to my base and put a little sentiment from the, let's see, where is this? This Altenew set is the Build-A-Flower Cone Flower, and it is beautiful. So we're going to use this and do some stamping on it. So we'll move this out of the way. Before we do our stamping, we'll add even a little bit more water there. Then we could say we just had some extra and we wanted to, just take like a tag. I find a tag is good, or just I always have random pieces of white cardstock. So I'll just dip it in, maybe set it aside. I haven't really played with the dipping aspect of this a whole lot. I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. The name of the pencil sharpener is Prismacolor. If you're looking for it in the Scrap Shot store, it's the only pencil sharpener there. You can just search pencil sharpener, but it is the Prismacolor one that I have. So then you could just and the color is really nice. Like even though we've watered it down, like, isn't that beautiful? And it's just brown. Normally I wouldn't think to use brown as a background, but I think it looks really great. But these I think are fun because it just gives you a background and then you can do whatever you want on this tag. And because you've got all these fun watercolor drips on it, it just looks like, to me, this is like a coffee background. If I wanted to do a tag with some kind of a coffee effect, and then I'm not sure, but I think this will still react with water. We're going to see. We're going to spray it and just set it aside for a minute. Then we're going to just clean this up. There still is a lot. There's a lot of pigment there. You could definitely even do another background. If you had to just keep some white cardstock and any leftovers, you just dip it in. This is the Waffle Flower Media Matte, and I'm not sure if there was a large one and a small one. This is the small size, but they are great for working on as well. So let's see. There wasn't a whole lot of reaction, I think, just because I had watered it out quite a bit. Hello, Lorraine. But very pretty. Isn't that nice? Then you could come in with your inks. You could stamp something over that and have a really nice background. Eating chocolate ice cream in summer. What you look like. That's awesome. I can see a scrapbook page with that as the background. And it does look like chocolate ice cream. You're right. Okay, so let's grab this stamp press and we'll do a little bit of stamping with them. I'm trying to keep my stuff organized because I find like 20 minutes in, then I can't find anything, even though it's right in front of me. Okay, so we are going to stamp the flower to get a layered stamping effect. So this is, hello Gail, using the Altenew cone flower set, and move things around a little bit here. Okay, so I did this one. We could do the smaller one. And if you do go over your stamp lines with the watercolor pencils, you're going to find it dulls them out a little bit, which I don't think is a big deal. But if you did want them to be crisp, then you can come back and go over. But that means you want to leave this on, and I'll show you what we're going to do, so that you can come back and stamp it at the end, and it just gives you that crisp impression at the end. So I'm using the Altenew Obsidian pigment ink, which I really love for anything that's water-based. And just press that down. And this again is the Vicki Boutin paper, so that's stamped really nicely. So I am going to give this a wipe off, but I'm not going to take it off. And when I do my layered stamping, I'm just going to move everything up at the top. And then that way I know when I move it down, it's going to all be in the right spot. So with the Altenew layered stamp sets, and there's lots of different layered stamp sets around. Pink Fresh has some really nice ones too. They have labeled these, so you can kind of see these flowers are together. A1 would be your first layer. And you're just going to line it up with that bottom layer to go over it. So if you were stamping with ink, this is the same thing that you would do. I don't think it matters if you're a little bit outside the line. I think it still gives you, like, it just is that fun watercolor floral effect, and so I really wouldn't worry about it. So to do the flowers, let's see, let's maybe let's go with maybe a pink and a red. So I'm going to use this picked raspberry, and we could even use 2 different pinks on that first layer. Like, there's not any specific rules. We can do whatever we want. So because I want to come in and color the stamp with a wet pencil, I'm actually going to get it a little bit wet. And you can come back to it as much as you want. This is a pretty light color. So what I want is to have watercolor that's sitting all over my stamp. So I'm going to add this light bit in a couple different places. It doesn't take too long for these pencils to dry either, so if you've got them a little bit wet and you don't want to put them right back in your case, if you just set them down for a second, it really doesn't take long for them to dry. So we can come back and stamp this again because we do have a stamp press. We're just going to lightly let that watercolor absorb into the paper, and then we'll pull that up. Very pretty. I think that this one is a little bit light, and I could go over it again, but I might just go over it with that darker pink. And if I do get a little bit of the picked raspberry on this, again, I'm really not worried about it because I can just wipe it off. So you can go back and forth and just add your layers of color until you're happy with it. I think that does look nice though. Let's just leave it like that. I think that's fun. And then we'll just give it a wipe. It really wipes off perfectly. All right, now before we lay on our next stamp, we are going to give this a little bit of a dry. What color using with the picked raspberry? That was Kitsch Flamingo. And I think, well, I'm not sure. We'll try the Kitsch Flamingo too on dark cardstock because it shows up really nicely on dark cardstock too. But I can see it on here. It's just a really soft pink. So you could let that little bit dry, but just because we're going in with our next one, I'm just going to dab it there. So that's our first layer. It doesn't matter where you put this because we're just going to add the stamp over top. The next one would be A2. So we're going in with this next layer. And you can also have the package here. You can also reference the package if you're not quite sure how it goes on, just so you can see where those shaded areas are and where it's pretty self-explanatory, and it's not going to matter a whole lot. But I know that this little spot right here, there's a little bit of an opening, and so I know that will fit right in there, and it kind of just fits on there. So then for this layer, maybe we'll go with, just trying to think of what color we should use. Should we use a purple, or there's the seedless preserves. That might look nice. We could try that. I was going to do red, but I kind of like the purple. Thanks, Cynthia. So we'll just wet this. I don't know that I've used this one. I find when they're completely new, it took me a little bit to start it, but after I use it a little bit, then the color is very, very easy to go on. And the darker colors especially have just so much pigment in them. So I'm almost taking the edge, the side of the pencil and rubbing it over the stamp. Okay, so let's see how this looks. Well, that's very pretty. And again, if you wanted to go over it again with another layer, if you felt like you needed a little more detail, where's that? Right here, we could just go back in and add a little bit more there. Oh, that's so pretty. You could easily, sorry about that, you could easily do a bunch of these at once just by having it positioned so you could change it out and do them all at once. Okay, so this one is B2, so this is our little centerpiece. But before we do that, we're just going to give it a little bit of a dry. Okay, we'll position our centerpiece on here, and the center, I don't know, like I feel like yellow would probably go really nicely. This mustard seed is a really nice color. And I can definitely see the kitsch flamingo in there now that it's dried. The color combo looks like the coneflowers that grow in your mom's garden. Oh, that's nice, gal. Well, it was a good guess then. What would go together? And I'm just even going to leave that little space white. You could fill it in if you wanted to, but I am not even going to worry about that. And then let's see here. We've got, oh, this is why. This is B1. That would be the space that goes behind it. I'm not going to worry about that, but you could do that layer and then you could do the B2 and have a little bit different color. Maybe what we'll do, because I forgot about it and didn't realize that was there. Actually, you know what we could do? We could go in with a little bit of antique linen and just see how that goes over the top of that yellow. So I'm not sure if the colors will cover up one another. I think they kind of do, but they're not completely translucent for sure. So if we go in with let's say antique linen. I'm just experimenting here. And we'll just see how that reacts. There's a little bit of yellow on top of that because the color wasn't completely dry, but we're just going to see what happens and we'll let it dry. I think it just kind of mixed in with it. Okay, so then your next layer is your C1. And that does your leaf. We don't need to dry that because the leaf isn't touching it. So the leaf we could do, how about if we go with crushed olive? And we're just going to color that in. We can dab off a little bit of this extra. And if your crayon is a little bit less wet, then it's going to be more dry on your paper or darker on your paper. If you felt like you've got a little bit too much water, just by dabbing it up when it's still wet, it pretty much removes that. I want to add just a tiny bit of water on there. So you can really play with how much color you get on there. And I really like that effect of almost going back that second time to add a little bit of color in certain areas. I feel like it just looks so good. And then we have C2, which is our last leaf. I feel like they make this pretty easy to follow along with. I'm going to grab the peeled paint and let's give this just a slight dry. If you didn't dry it in between, obviously like this, I can still see the antique linen in the center, even though it did blend a little bit because I think things weren't all dry, you can still see it. Hello, Melody. So let's just give this a little bit of a dry. And then we're at our peeled paint. I like to how they've left the stems open. So if you wanted to take a marker and make this larger and just color it in yourself, you totally could. Okay, so we'll add that there. And you can always rub some of that water off if you feel like it needs some off. I think too, by just doing this a few times, you kind of get into the groove of how you like to use it. There, isn't that pretty? Yeah, I'm really liking them too, Jenny. The purple, I think you could have gone with the red over it and had a totally different look, but the purple looks very nice. So that again, so then if I wanted, I'm always nervous to do this, but let's see. It looks like it's going to work. I don't think that too much color went over it. We're going to try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay, it worked. So there, then the lines are just a little bit more crisp right over the top. But if you wanted to stamp this, say, originally with like a antique linen, then you'd really get more of a watercolored look without the image. So I think that would look really nice as well. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we can wipe this off and put this away. Then I'm going to show you another technique with those sharpenings because I forgot to do it when I had it out, but that's okay. So that's the build a coneflower. So for the background of this, I actually use just a plain piece of white cardstock. It's probably about 110, but it's not watercolor or foundations paper. And let's find all my stuff. Okay, so I've got Faded Jeans, and I think that's the color I used, but it doesn't really matter. I've got this Southern Ridge Trading Company stencil, and I think this is Geo, and it's Geo something, and it's still in the shop, I think. Okay, so we've got our stencil, we've got our plain cardstock, and we're just going to lay that over top. And what we're going to do is take our sharpener, so I'm just going to tap it to get the other color out of it. I don't really worry about too much about that. And then we're just going to sharpen this a little bit. And it's never a bad thing to have a sharp pencil. Okay, so then we can put that away. And then I'm going to take my water. And this is like magic how these sharpenings just turn into this liquid pigment. And I'm sure if you let that set a little bit, then everything would just dissolve. Hello, Rosie. How are you? Thanks, Lorraine. Hello, Monica. Thanks, Cynthia and Irene and Betty. All right, so all I'm doing is taking a sponge and I'm just dabbing it into, I'm mixing this watercolor around that we made with the shavings and just water. Now think about too, if you wanted to add in a little bit of like a shimmer spray, any kind of shimmer spray, that would be fun. I'm just trying to think of what might be in the shop. Maybe, I don't know if this is still in, but the airless mister, like this cosmic shimmer or any kind of clear shimmer spray. You could mix that with the shavings. So if I wanted to add just a little bit more, just because I'm adding a little bit more liquid, and I'm going to move these so I don't get shimmer spray all over them. And add some shimmer. Then we've got a shimmery watercolor. I'm not sure how much the shimmer will show up on white cardstock, but we'll see. I don't think a little shimmer is ever a bad idea. All right, so then all I did was take my sponge and look how much color I'm getting through my stencil. So you guys probably know that I love doing this technique with lunar paste, and I thought I'm going to try it with the watercolor shavings because then you have just so many options, and I love that you could then customize this to go with your project. So for this here, I had used some of it in the flower and then thought I would use it around the edge. So look how pretty that is. Oh, no problem, Glenda. Thank you for watching. And I think I can see a little bit of shimmer. I don't know, it might show up more when we dry it. It might not show up a whole lot. But you could do the same thing. You could add the shavings, water them down a bit, and then add them to like a texture paste or something. That would be fun. Could definitely experiment with them. Oh, I can a little bit see the shimmer paste, like, or sorry, the shimmer spray. I can see it shimmery a little bit compared to this one. Not a lot. And then you would just rinse that out. So pretty easy to clean up. All right, let me clean this up, and then I can see myself using this technique with the stencils a lot. I think it's a quick and easy way to add that stencil background and get that pop of color, but a watercolor effect. All right, what are we doing next here? Let's move this out of the way. And then I just stamped it with that sentiment from the Altenew set. I added a few of the Lucy's little things from Lucy's cards. That lady is from the UK and she does up little customized gem collections. So Sandy had ordered them from the UK, which is awesome. And then I have a completed card there. Okay, so the next thing, embossing folders. So there's lots of different embossing folders. Hello, Doris. Let's see here. Lots of them. This happens to be an Altenew because I had this in front of me. But there's lots of 3D folders, lots of folders that you have with different images on them, 2D, 3D, whatever. So this is a really great way to add some color. Now, if I can find what I did with my sample one, because I did one already. It's literally sitting right in front of me. Okay. So for this, yeah, thank you, Irene. Yeah, it's about that time where I start to lose everything. I mean, literally, I have a small table right here and there's not anywhere where it can go, but it's just when you look and you don't see it. Okay, so this one is Berried Cotton Easter. I think it came out at Christmas, kind of a Christmas berry, but I think it could be used for anything. So I decided to color it kind of a purpley color, and I think that you could make it for any season, stick a sentiment on, and this would be a beautiful card. So I just embossed this is again the Vicki Boutin Foundations paper because I like watercoloring on it. And we can just go in and start coloring. So this one here, I think I used the crushed olive. And all I'm doing is really just very quick and sketchy. I'm almost holding this on the side because I want to get it on almost do that rub impression just for it to go over the top of the leaves. And add some of that watercolor pencil. And I'm just getting some of those stems. It's not a big deal if it goes out of the line a bit. Okay, so I've got a little bit of color on. I actually want to add some shading of color. I could go in and I could water this right now, but I may as well go in and add a little bit of shading. I'm really not being too careful. We won't do the whole thing, but just to give you an idea. So I would go over the other leaves the same way. This is peeled paint. And then I can go in. Let's zoom in a little bit. So then I can go in and just like we did the watercolor coloring, I'm going over the lighter part, and then I'm going to pick up some of that darker color and just kind of move it around to add a little bit of shading. And the more I go over it, the more it will blend out. And if you have your tissue or paper towel there, then you can dab anytime off, just so that you can have a little bit more control over your colors. And I would probably go over all the ones that I had added the color to, and then decide if I want to add a little bit of extra color. So now that we have those main areas done, and the same thing on the stems, you're just kind of pulling that color so even though there was a little bit of a glob there, it easily blended out. Here, I mean, I wouldn't really worry about too much, but I just went over it with my watercolor paintbrush, and then it pretty much lifts any color off. So if then I thought, you know what, it kind of blended a little more than I wanted, I want a little bit of extra shading, then you can go in. This is the peeled paint again, but you could go in with a darker color if you wanted, and just start adding a little bit of color. Just a little bit of shading, right? And sometimes I will let that dry, and then if I come back and think, oh, I think it needs a little bit more here or there, you can still add that. I'm really not being very careful at all. And then I would go in, so the same thing I would do to all of the leaves. I think I added a little bit of rustic wilderness on top just to highlight the inside for that one. And then I would just go in and do, so I think, I'm trying to think of what I used for this. This one here is Villainous Potion. And I'm really not being careful. I'm just going over the top to get that shading. So if you want a little bit extra, you're going to rub a little harder. You can be a little bit more careful if you're going into the areas that have those stems. But basically, I'm just trying to get a little bit of a layer of color. Then I should clean my brush because purple and green make brown. But again, if I did that and thought, oh, I don't like that, I'm just gonna dab it up. So I know this is going to be my first layer, and I'm not too worried about everything being perfect. And then I could even give this a little bit of a dry. And then I can go back in and add my details. So then, say if I wanted to go with this seedless preserves here. Picking it up with your paintbrush is such a great way. And if you felt like that's too dark, then you just add a little bit of water and blend it out a bit. It's really you can make it look however you want. So just by adding those little details, I can really create that shading really easily. And it can be as dark or as light as I want. And if I felt like here there's too much of a difference, then I just come back in and I can even pick up a little bit with that. So you can really make it look however you want. And you've got this background that is just this beautiful watercolored background. Again, you've got a really soft kind of look, and that can be your main card, and then you just stamp your sentiment on that, right? So that is embossing folders. Okay, what else did I have here? I wanted to show you, I've got a white tag. So if you don't have any watercolor paper, you just have regular white paper that you want to just use or play with, or I had these tags and I thought tags would be a great way to use this color, these colors. But I knew that because this is really thin paper, if I draw on this tag, nothing's really going to wick out because it's just plain paper. It's when you have watercolor paper or you have something that's gessoed or you have a base. So I was playing with this Colavelo glue. We did a class, some retailer classes this week with scrap Shotz, which was really fun. Got to use some new products. And this is a collage type glue. So it's very easy to use. You can use it either as a glue that you're going to collage things just as a glue. You can use it as a base that you can coat a regular piece of paper with, and it's just a really quick drying, thin glue. So that's going to create a base, almost like a gessoed piece, very quickly. So then we would just sit that aside to dry. I have this one already done. You can see it's a little bit glossy, and we can set that aside. And then you just want to make sure your brush is rinsed out. I really liked working with that. We did some collage projects, and it worked really nicely as well. And then it worked nicely. They had some paints they were featuring, and it worked really nicely for the paints and sprays to move over top. So that's why I think it'll work really nicely for the distress pencils. I need another drink of water. And let's see, 2:20. Where does the time go? Okay, we'll just do a couple more things, and yeah. So if we wanted to use these colors here, I had used Salty Ocean. So basically I put you can either now just rub these on or you can use them wet. We'll just do a little bit of a rub on. And then we've got Picked Raspberry. I'm going to overlap some of these colors. These colors are going to look great together. So these are all from Watercolor Set 1. These colors, it doesn't matter if you kind of get them mixed because yellow and blue make green and pink and yellow make an orange, and then blue and pink make purple. So we have just a base of color. Then we can go in and wet our paintbrush. Hello, Amy. And we can just start moving color around because we put that base down first. I know Sandy is getting some of that in. It will be in the store when she gets it in. So all I'm doing is mixing around the blue, then going back to the pink. I don't want to mix the whole thing. If I mix everything together, then we're going to get brown. And I'm just moving that color around. And then you just have this fun watercolor background. And I think similar to if you had a gessoed background, the color is just a little bit softer. And then we can go in and add more color. If there's some there that we don't specifically want, then we can just grab that up. And you could set that aside, or you could continue to dry that. And then again, add whatever colors over top. So if you wanted to take your colors and get them wet, that's going to allow you to get a little bit more pigment down. And just really play with whatever you want to play with. We can add more water and move this around again. Just by playing with it. This to me is so fun, just to sit and play with different colors and see how they react. If you don't want to add as much water, then it's not going to water them out as much. And basically here you're just creating a background. If you want to get some drips, then you can add some extra water and you can get those drips. And then, so I would probably set that aside to dry a little bit or fully dry it. And then you could start creating your tag. So normally I wouldn't leave a background just like that. Then I would build on that. So this is the same colors, and I decided to grab out the same colors of oxides. And then if we went back to, let's see here, I've got a couple of these Vicky Bouton stencils. These are from the print shop collection. There's two different, let me get this open. There's two different stencil sets, and they each have 3 in them. You see, I think I have them both here. This one is one of them with the circles and the little circle squares and the flowers. You can layer them. And then the other set I don't have the package for, but it is in the shop if you're looking for it. So we can just lay this on. I'm just going to clean this up so I don't make a huge mess. And take your sponges or your brushes, and then you can use some of those same colors that you had in the background and just start layering them for another effect, right? Another layer over your background. So I wouldn't necessarily do the whole thing with one color or use the same stencil. Then you could go in with, some different stencils and do some layering. And this is the picked raspberry in the ink. So one of the really nice features of having these pencils is that these colors, how, colors that maybe you are your go-to mixing colors, and they're all going to look great together, and the pencils are going to match. So lots of fun options. This one is really fun, this little sun type thing. I don't know that I usually use 3 stencils on a background, but you totally could. And you're just creating this background. So already you've got this really fun effect. And then I would probably even go in and do some stamping over top. So if you had a fun image that you wanted to stamp, I have the Elizabeth Craft crayons journaling stamp, and it is really great. Hello, Scrap Shots. I know, I'm still here. I'm still going. Okay, so this one is the Planner Essentials Elizabeth Craft crayons with journaling cards. There's another stamp set that is the journaling card one as well. And I love this because you can easily color this in with these pencils, which I think would be fabulous. But I, of course, love layering on these ticket type things. So then you could come in, if you're doing a mixed media type project, and then you could do your stamping. this is how I would probably normally the layers, you know, building layers if I'm doing a mixed media tag or something. And, you know, just have fun kind of adding a few little details. And then if I wanted to continue on and create, then I would probably go to some kind of ephemera, maybe something from Print Shop, those really great ephemera pieces from that pack. What's that pack called? The Papery pack. So you could totally go in, grab some stickers or ephemera pieces, and then, you know, staple those on, and you've just got just a really great, pretty tag. I love making tags. So that is using that Cola Vella glue and the pencils as your background, starting out as that, and then you've got this cute little thing. I would layer a few things, maybe add a flower and some ribbon, and that is pretty. And we'll just do one last thing. So stamping on black, you can really get some great effects stamping on black cardstock, and especially those light colored, pencils work really great. So here I use that Altenew flower, and I just use some light colors. Here I used a stamp from the Print Shop. Love this stamps. These ones I think are still in the shop as well. These are really great mixed media stamps, and they're awesome too for like adding stamps to backgrounds. And so you could grab one of these. There's a flower stamp as well that goes with this set. And I think, Irene, you might know if you're still on, these fit right inside the flower, I think. So just to give you an idea of stamping on black, let's see if we want to use a few of our lighter colors to really highlight those. Let's try the tumbled glass. And again, we're just doing that same idea where you're wetting those pencils. The black, yeah, like you could have this as your focal image and it really pops. You could do the same thing that we did with the shavings and the stencil over black with like the white and some of those lighter colors, and that would look amazing too. So all I'm doing is just going over this with that edge of the pencil and then just pressing it down. The circles fit the flower on the other stamp set. I think I have to get that now. Definitely, because I love this stamp. So then what I would probably do, because it's a little bit more water than I think I need, I would probably just dab a little bit of that up. But these work really good as well, really well, to color in images like this. So you're coloring partial images. I'm just going over this. I'm not really adding more water. And getting that variation in color. Yeah, this would look lovely. And then if you had the outside flower, you could create this whole beautiful flower. And as this dries, it actually lightens up even more. Look how bright that becomes. So pretty. And the white is really nice for splatters. So let me just quickly show you that, and then I'm gonna let you go. I have like probably a million other ideas. I could go for 10 hours, but I guess none of us have 10 hours right at this moment. So I'm just dipping that in the water to get it a little bit wet. Then I'm going to pick it up with my paintbrush. And of course, you can do this with any color. If I want to get it a little bit more wet, I'm just going to add some water. And then you've got the ability to add these really great white splatters. Isn't that fun? I'm glad that you learned lots. On this one here, I added black splatters, which I also really love. And then you just let those dry, and I think white splatters are always, white or black are always a great thing, but again, you could use any color. So that is just some of the things that these wonderful pencils can do. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed, and that if you have these, you'll try some of these things, get out your supplies, and just really play around with using them, because I think that's the way that you figure out what, things to do or things that you might not normally try with your products, right? You're just trying different things, and then you end up with a whole bunch of like really fun bits and pieces. Yeah, the splatters, I know. Thanks, Glenda. Lots of fun things that then you can just like turn these into a card quick or make a tag. And my goal this year is to send out lots more birthday cards, so I think I'll just take a few minutes to then now stamp some sentiments and send them some things out. Spellbinder sale. So I don't exactly know what it is, Scrap Shotz. I know Irene said she saw some items in the store for sale. So it sounds like there is a great sale on right now. You guys are going to want to go check that out. Spellbinders. So that's awesome. And oh, good, Glenda. Thanks. Yeah, Spellbinders is really, really fun. They have some awesome things, and I think too they would work well with these pencils. 30% off Spellbinders. Okay, that is fabulous. So go check those out. Hope you have a great week. Enjoy your weekend and take some time for yourself. All the details are on Facebook for the Spellbinders sale. So if you need to check that out, I think I will be going to check that out too. I'll talk to you later, guys. Hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you. Bye.